My sister wiped out my savings and ran off with her boyfriend. I was devastated until my 9-year-old whispered, "Mom, relax, I handled it." A few days later, my sister phoned out of the blue, screaming. Can you even imagine the gut-wrenching pain of utter betrayal? Not from a stranger, but from the one person you poured your heart, your entire soul into raising? My own sister Stella. She vanished, taking everything, every last penny I'd fought tooth and nail to build for my daughter Maya and me. I was shattered, lost, until Maya, my 9-year-old, looked me dead in the eye and said something that changed everything. "Mom, don't worry. I handled it." What the hell did she mean? Trust me, you have no idea what happened next. Stella entered my life when I was just 7 years old, a tiny bundle our parents brought home from the hospital. I can still feel her minuscule fingers curling around mine that very first time I held her. Despite our 7-year age gap, we forged a bond that felt utterly unshakable. I taught her to ride a bike, patiently helped with homework, and chased away all the imaginary monsters lurking under her bed. She was my shadow, always emulating my every move, proudly wearing my hand-me-downs. We shared secrets, whispered dreams, and spoke a language only siblings truly understand. Our childhood wasn't some fairy tale though. When my parents' arguments started growing louder and more frequent, Stella would often sneak into my bed. I'd whisper stories, make up adventures until she finally drifted off. The discord escalated, becoming unbearable, and when I was 18 and Stella just 11, they finally divorced. It was a messy, brutal split, and we were caught right in the crossfire. Our mother moved clear across the country for a fresh start. Our father? He just dove headfirst into work and a new, much younger girlfriend. My college plans, my future, everything, it all got put on hold. Someone had to be there for Stella, and that person was me. I found a job at a local store. Each morning, I'd wake Stella, make her breakfast, and meticulously check her homework. Every evening, I'd cook dinner, help with assignments, and just ensure all her needs were met. I became more than a sister. I was a surrogate mother, a makeshift counselor, and her best friend, all rolled into one exhausted package. "You shouldn't have to do this," my father would murmur during his infrequent fleeting visits, a flicker of guilt in his eyes before he'd disappear again. My simple, unwavering reply was always, "She's my sister." It was that straightforward, that absolute to me. By the time Stella started high school, I was juggling 2 jobs. My friends were off graduating college, celebrating their futures, while I was serving coffee by day and waiting tables by night. Yet watching Stella flourish, seeing her blossom into a bright, popular, and driven young woman, made every single sacrifice feel profoundly worthwhile. When she earned a partial scholarship to college, I felt a surge of pride deeper than if it were my own accomplishment. "I'm going to repay you for everything someday," Stella promised the night before she left. "Just succeed," I told her, though our bank account was practically empty after buying her dorm essentials. "That's all the repayment I need." I truly meant it. At 25, I met David, charming, ambitious, and seemingly utterly devoted to me. Within a year, we were married, and then, joyously, I was pregnant with Maya. For a brief, blissful period, life felt absolutely idyllic. Stella was thriving in college, I had a stable administrative assistant job, and David and I shared a small, cozy apartment. Maya's birth was without a doubt the happiest day of my life. She had my green eyes and David's dimples, and I instantly, irrevocably, fell head over heels in love. Stella drove 4 hours just to meet her niece, bringing a handmade blanket she'd painstakingly knitted for months. "She's perfect, Clara," Stella whispered, using my childhood nickname. "You're going to be the best mom ever." But that fairy tale began to unravel when Maya turned 3. David started coming home late, always with vague, flimsy work excuses. His phone was constantly locked, a fortress, and he grew emotionally distant. When I finally found lipstick on his collar, yes, as cliché and sickening as it sounds, he didn't even bother to deny the affair. Our marriage crumbled within months, and David moved across the country with his new girlfriend, barely maintaining contact with Maya. Suddenly, I was a single mother, heartbroken, drowning under a suffocating pile of mounting bills. Those first months were a blur of tears, endless sleepless nights, and relentless, gnawing worry. Stella, freshly graduated from college, immediately packed her bags and moved in with us. "I've got you, sis," she vowed. "Just like you had me." Stella's presence was an absolute lifeline. She helped with Maya, cooked meals when I worked late, and actually made me laugh when all I wanted to do was curl up and cry. But after a few months, subtle oddities began to surface. I dismissed them, of course. $20 missing from my purse that I was certain I'd left there. Bills Stella offered to pay online, but somehow never got processed, leading to infuriating late fees. A credit card I rarely used suddenly showed unusual charges that Stella explained away as surprise gifts she was planning for me. Did you take money from my wallet?" I asked once, the words feeling foreign, hateful even as they left my mouth. "Clara, I can't believe you'd ask me that," Stella replied, her eyes welling with tears, her voice trembling. "I must have borrowed it for groceries and forgotten to tell you. I'm so sorry." I instantly felt a burning wave of guilt for even doubting her. This was Stella, the little girl who once gave her entire allowance to a homeless man, who'd stayed up all night with me when Maya had her first fever. If she borrowed money, it was an innocent oversight, not theft. Right? After a year, Stella found her own apartment nearby. She still visited almost daily and often watched Maya when I needed to work late. Maya absolutely adored her aunt, who always brought little gifts and took her for ice cream every Saturday. They had sleepovers, building elaborate pillow forts and staying up late watching Disney movies. Looking back, I should have seen the screaming red flags, but when you love someone, truly love them, you invent excuses for their behavior. You construct elaborate explanations that preserve the idealized image you hold of them. And I loved my sister too much to see what was truly unfolding right before my very eyes. 5 years after my divorce, I finally found my footing. Through night classes and countless hours of overtime, I clawed my way up the ladder from administrative assistant to marketing manager. The promotion brought a significant salary increase and better hours, giving me precious more time with Maya, who was now 9 and blossoming into a remarkably perceptive child. "You're not as tired anymore, Mom," Maya observed one evening as we cooked dinner, her small hands carefully stirring pasta sauce. "That's because I don't have to work 2 jobs anymore, sweetie," I replied, a pang of guilt hitting me as I realized how profoundly my exhaustion must have impacted her. With my improved finances, I achieved what once seemed utterly impossible: buying our own home. It wasn't grand or luxurious, just a modest 3-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with good schools, but it was ours. The day we got the keys, Maya raced through every single room, claiming the smallest bedroom with the bay window as her own. "We're never leaving, right, Mom?" she asked, her green eyes serious, searching mine for reassurance. "This is our forever home," I promised, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. For the first time since David left, I could breathe financially. I opened 3 separate accounts with very specific purposes. A college fund for Maya with $15,000, an emergency fund with $21,000 painstakingly built over 5 grueling years, and a savings account with $20,000 earmarked for a small marketing consultancy I dreamed of starting from home, allowing me to be even more present for Maya as she grew. The $56,000 total represented years of sacrifice. Packing lunches instead of buying them, cutting my own hair, taking on freelance projects on weekends, and never buying anything that wasn't absolutely unequivocally essential. Each deposit, no matter how small, was a silent victory in my quiet battle for security. While my life finally stabilized, Stella seemed to plunge into increasing chaos. Her calls became wildly unpredictable, sometimes daily, sometimes with weeks of unsettling silence. She frequently changed jobs, always with dramatic tales of unreasonable bosses or toxic workplaces. Her appearance fluctuated too. Expensive clothes one month, unable to afford a haircut the next. "Can I borrow $500 until payday?" became a regular, unwelcome request, though the amounts grew larger and payday sometimes just never arrived. I'd gently remind her about previous loans and she'd become defensive or worse, tearful. "I can't believe you're counting dollars with your own sister," she'd say, her voice trembling with manufactured hurt. After everything we've been through, those words always hit their mark. I'd transfer the money, telling myself it was just temporary, just family helping family. After all, hadn't I put my entire life on hold for her once? Then Brendan entered the picture. Stella met him at a bar where she was waitressing and fell hard and fast. Within weeks, he was all she talked about. Charming, ambitious Brendan with big plans and an even bigger, more magnetic personality. "He's going to start his own business," she gushed. "He just needs some capital to get it off the ground." When I finally met Brendan at a dinner I hosted, something just felt off. He was conventionally handsome, with perfectly white teeth and designer clothes that seemed far too expensive for someone between opportunities, as he so smoothly described himself. He charmed Stella, finishing her sentences and keeping his arm possessively around her waist, almost as if claiming her. "What exactly is this business you're planning?" I asked over dessert, trying to sound casual. "Import-export," he replied smoothly, a practiced smile on his face. "I have connections overseas. It's all about who you know." His answers to my other questions were equally vague, sidestepping specifics with alarming ease. More concerning, though, was how he scrutinized everything in my home with calculating eyes, asking pointed questions about my job, my salary, and yes, my savings. After they left, Maya tugged at my sleeve, her little face serious. "I don't like him, Mom," she said simply. "Why not, sweetie?" "He looks at our stuff weird. And he made Aunt Stella cry in the bathroom." I heard them. I dismissed her concerns, chalking it up to childhood intuition mingled with a protective instinct towards her aunt. "Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements," I explained. "It doesn't mean he's a bad person." In retrospect, oh God, I should have trusted my 9-year-old daughter instead of dismissing her incredibly perceptive observation. Stella's requests for money escalated after Brendan became a permanent fixture in her life. She needed money for car repairs, medical bills without insurance, and security deposits for apartments she mysteriously had to leave quickly, always under some dramatic pretense. Each time, her gratitude was effusive, overwhelming, but tragically short-lived, quickly replaced by new emergencies and even greater needs. 2 months ago, I received a frantic, tearful call while preparing for an important 3-day business conference in Portland. Stella was sobbing, barely coherent. "Brendan and I got evicted," she cried, her voice cracking. The landlord gave us no warning. We have nowhere to go. My heart twisted. Immediately, I offered my spare bedroom until they found a new place. You can stay as long as you need, I assured her, even though a tiny voice in my head screamed at the logistics. Miss Evans next door will help with Maya while I'm at the conference. The night before my trip, Stella made a request that sent a shiver down my spine. She asked for my banking password. Just in case there's an emergency while you're gone, she explained, her eyes wide and innocent. What if something happens to Maya and we need money for the hospital? I hesitated. Financial boundaries had always been a sensitive, charged topic between us, with Stella quick to bring up my supposed lack of trust whenever I set limits. I've set up an envelope with emergency cash in my dresser drawer, I countered, trying to hold firm, and I'll have my phone the entire time. Her face fell, her lip trembling. You still don't trust me after everything, Clara? I'm 30 years old, not a child. To avoid an argument right before my important trip, and foolishly to prove I did trust her, I reluctantly wrote down my banking password and left it on the kitchen counter. Only for a real emergency, I emphasized, ignoring the cold, unsettling uneasiness settling deep in my stomach. As I drove to the airport the next morning, Stella and Brendan waved from the porch, Maya between them, already in her school uniform. If I'd known, if I'd had even the slightest inkling of what would happen in the next 72 hours, I would have slammed on the brakes and turned the car around, consequences be damned. But I didn't know. I simply waved back, called out a final, love you all, and drove away, leaving everything I valued in the hands of the sister I trusted completely. The marketing conference was a huge success. I gave a presentation that impressed several potential clients, and my boss even hinted at another possible promotion. During breaks, I called home to check on Maya, who sounded happy, excited about having her aunt staying over. Brendan is teaching me card tricks, she told me during our last call. And Aunt Stella said we can have pizza tonight. That sounds fun, sweetie. I'll be home tomorrow afternoon and we can have a movie night, just the two of us. Hey, Mom. Love you infinity. Love you infinity +1, I replied, our usual comforting exchange. Everything seemed perfectly fine until it wasn't. On my third and final morning at the conference, I tried calling Stella to confirm my arrival time. No answer. I texted, assuming she was busy with Maya's school drop-off. By noon, with still no response, a nagging, icy worry began to grow. I called Ms. Evans, who confirmed she'd taken Maya to school that morning as arranged. Stella asked me to watch Maya after school too, she added, said she had some errands to run. Is everything okay? I'm sure it's fine, I said, the words feeling hollow, more to reassure myself than her. Probably just phone problems. As I waited to board my flight home, I decided to check my bank accounts, something I hadn't done during the busy conference. I opened the banking app on my phone, entered my password and watched as my world collapsed in an instant. My balance for all three accounts, $0. 0. I blinked, assuming it was a glitch, a terrible error, or that I'd accidentally logged into the wrong account. I logged out and back in. Same gut-wrenching result. My emergency fund empty. Maya's college fund empty. My business savings empty. $56,000. Gone. My hands started shaking so violently I dropped my phone. The boarding announcement became a distant, muffled noise as blood rushed in my ears, a roaring torrent. I couldn't breathe. A kind stranger picked up my phone, genuine concern etched on her face as she asked if I needed medical help. Somehow in a daze I made it onto the plane. The 3-hour flight was absolute torture, my mind cycling through increasingly desperate, ridiculous explanations. There must be a banking error. Stella's phone was broken and she'd explain everything. Perhaps there was a security breach and the bank froze the accounts. But deep down in the pit of my soul I knew none of these scenarios was true. Landing in Seattle, I called Stella repeatedly while rushing to my car, my thumb numb from dialing. Still no answer. I drove home, breaking every speed limit, praying, begging to be wrong about what I already knew, what I already felt had happened. Our house looked normal from outside. Flowers still bloomed in the front yard where Maya and I had planted them together. The porch light was on, a beacon as if waiting for my return. But something felt off immediately, a profound stillness, a gaping emptiness. Inside, Stella's guest room was completely cleared out. No clothes in the closet, no toiletries in the bathroom, no note on the bed, just a faint, lingering scent of her perfume. I called the police with shaking hands, my voice a strangled whisper, reporting the theft. The officer who arrived took details with professional, almost detached calm. Family fraud is unfortunately common, ma'am, he explained, typing notes into his tablet. Do you have any idea where your sister might have gone? No, I whispered, the crushing reality crashing down harder with each passing agonizing minute. I thought I knew her. The officer's expression softened slightly, a flicker of empathy. We'll file the report, but I should be upfront. Recovery in these cases is difficult, especially with family members who know your personal information. After he left, I sat motionless at my kitchen table, staring blankly at the wall. The shock was physical, a cold, heavy weight. My body felt frozen, my lungs unable to fill completely, my stomach twisted in agonizing knots. I trusted Stella with everything. My home, my daughter, my entire financial security. In return, she'd taken it all. I called my neighbors, desperate, hoping someone had seen something. Mr. Peterson across the street had noticed Stella and Brendan loading suitcases into their car the previous evening. Thought they were just going on a trip, he said apologetically. They seemed in a hurry but not suspicious. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even begin to process the sheer magnitude of what had happened. The emergency fund meant to protect us in crisis. Gone. Maya's college fund that I'd sacrificed so much to build. Gone. The business savings that represented my dreams for our future. Gone. But worse than the money, far worse, was the gaping wound of betrayal. My sister, my baby sister who I'd practically raised, who'd held my hand through my darkest days after my divorce, who Maya adored beyond measure. How could she do this to us? Then I found a single small note, tucked almost carelessly in the kitchen drawer where I kept takeout menus. 5 words in Stella's familiar, elegant handwriting. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I had to. Asterisk, had to? Had to steal from her own sister? Had to rob her niece's future? What possible justifiable reason could exist for such a monstrous betrayal? The hardest part was yet to come. Telling Maya. How do you explain to a 9-year-old that the aunt she adores, the one she trusted implicitly, has stolen our entire security? How do you preserve a child's trust in people, in family, after such a fundamental, shattering betrayal? I picked Maya up from Ms. Evans's that afternoon, trying desperately to compose myself for her sake, to hide the raw devastation. One look at my face and her bright smile instantly faded. What's wrong, Mom? Let's talk at home, sweetie. Sitting on our living room couch, I tried to find gentle words, but there was no soft, easy way to describe such a harsh, brutal reality. Honey, something really bad has happened. Aunt Stella and Brendan took the money from our savings accounts. All of it. The money for college and emergencies? Maya asked, her voice small, vulnerable, a tiny whisper. Yes, I confirmed, the tears finally, uncontrollably breaking through. And they left without telling us. I'm so sorry, Maya. I trusted her and she. I couldn't continue. Sobs overtook me. For the lost money, for the shattered relationship, for my daughter who deserved so much better than this agonizing chaos. I'd failed to protect her, failed to see what was happening right under my own roof. Maya watched me cry with a strange, unsettling calmness, her young face showing a maturity far beyond her years. Then she said the words that would change everything. Mom, don't worry. I handled it. Through my blurring tears, I stared at my daughter, utterly bewildered. Her face was serious, determined, not at all what I expected from a child who had just been told her beloved aunt had betrayed us. What do you mean you handled it? I asked, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. Maya stood up, walked to her bedroom and returned with my old smartphone, a device I'd given her for games after upgrading mine last year. She sat beside me, her small fingers navigating to the photo gallery with practiced, confident ease. I never liked Brendan, she began, her voice steady, unwavering. He smiled weird, not with his eyes. Sweetheart, what are you talking about? 2 weeks ago I heard them fighting in the guest room when you were working late. Brendan was telling Aunt Stella they needed money fast. Big money. Maya's face scrunched up, recalling the memory, a tiny frown. I was scared, so I started recording them on your old phone whenever they were here and I was around. She handed me the phone, showing a video file dated 10 days earlier. With trembling hands I pressed play. The video showed my kitchen from an unusual angle, apparently hidden behind the fruit bowl on the counter. Stella and Brendan stood arguing in hushed but intense voices. Your sister is loaded, Stella, Brendan hissed, his voice like venom. 3 accounts with almost 60 grand. We could use that. I'm not stealing from Clara, Stella replied, looking genuinely horrified, her voice cracking. She raised me. She's done everything for me. And now she gets to live in this nice house while we get evicted again? She owes you. Brendan's handsome face was transformed by raw greed, his eyes cold, calculating. Besides, it's borrowing, not stealing. We'll pay her back after my deal comes through. I watched in stunned silence as my sister shook her head, insisting she wouldn't betray me. The video ended and Maya queued up another from the following day. This one showed a different angle from behind a plant in the living room, Maya explained with a hint of pride. I got better at hiding the phone. In this recording, Brendan's tactics had chillingly changed. No longer demanding, he was pleading, his arm around Stella's shoulders, drawing her close. Baby, I'm in trouble. These aren't the kind of guys you can just tell, sorry, don't have it. They'll find me and it won't be pretty. His voice broke convincingly, a masterful performance. I never told you this, but they broke my brother's legs over less money. Stella's face in the video showed raw, undeniable fear. Why didn't you tell me before? How much do you owe? $50,000. I was trying to protect you from worrying. My heart sank, a heavy stone in my chest. Brendan was manipulating Stella, playing on her deepest sympathies, and from the look on her face in the video, it was tragically working. There are more, Maya said quietly, scrolling through dozens of video files, a testament to her meticulousness. I recorded everything when they were here. How did you know to do this? I asked, utterly astounded by my daughter's incredible foresight. Maya shrugged, a tiny, almost nonchalant gesture. From those detective shows we watch, the bad guys always talk about their plans if you listen long enough. The next video showed Brendan on his phone in our backyard, speaking in a completely different, chillingly confident tone than he used with Stella. Yeah, I found a perfect mark, he was saying, a cruel grin on his face. Sister's got at least 50 grand saved up. And the best part, she trusts the girlfriend completely. We'll clean it out and be in Mexico before they know what hit them. My stomach violently turned. Brendan wasn't just opportunistically taking advantage of Stella. He had targeted us from the very beginning, a cold, calculated predator. But the most revealing video was from the night before I left for the conference. It showed my bedroom, filmed from what appeared to be Maya's hiding spot in the closet. Stella was sitting on my bed, head in her hands, her shoulders shaking, while Brendan paced, a menacing shadow. I can't do this, Stella sobbed, a genuine anguish in her voice. Clara will be devastated. Brendan's charming facade had completely vanished, replaced by pure malevolence. You don't have a choice anymore, he snapped, his voice sharp and dangerous. Either she loses some money or I tell her about Tampa. Stella's head jerked up, her face pale, draining of all color. You wouldn't. You can't. Brendan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low, chilling growl. Your perfect sister doesn't know everything about you, does she? How do you think she'd feel knowing what you did there? The threat hung heavy, suffocating in the air. Stella's shoulders slumped in utter defeat. Fine, she whispered, but we're paying her back. Every cent. Sure, baby. Whatever you say. Brendan's smile was cold, victorious, chillingly devoid of warmth. I paused the video, my mind reeling, 1,000 thoughts colliding. Tampa? Stella had never, ever mentioned Tampa to me. There's more, Maya said, pulling out a small, worn notebook from her pocket. I wrote down their conversation when they didn't know I was listening. Brendan's real name isn't Jake. It's Daniel Wilcox. He told Aunt Stella to never call him that, but I heard her use that name when they were fighting. I stared at my 9-year-old daughter in utter disbelief. While I had been obliviously trusting my sister, completely blind, Maya had been conducting a thorough, methodical investigation worthy of a seasoned detective. There's one more thing, she said, taking the phone back and opening a different app. I set up your laptop in the guest room as a security camera. I told Aunt Stella I needed it for a school project, but I was really using that spy program you installed when you thought I was playing too many games. The irony, the bitter humor might have made me laugh in different circumstances. The parental monitoring software I'd installed to keep tabs on her screen time was now providing critical, undeniable evidence. Maya pulled up a video showing Brendan going through my desk drawers, finding the banking password I'd foolishly written down, and taking a photo of it with his phone. Later in the same video, he casually opened my laptop and accessed my accounts, writing down all the details. I saved everything to your cloud storage, Maya explained, her voice matter-of-fact. So even if they took my phone, we'd still have the videos. I gathered my remarkable daughter into my arms, holding her tighter than I ever had before, burying my face in her hair. Maya, you are absolutely incredible. But why didn't you tell me what was happening? Her small body tensed against mine. I tried, Mom. I told you I didn't like Brendan. I told you I heard them fighting. But you said I was just being jealous of Aunt Stella. Shame, hot and stinging, washed over me. He was right. I had dismissed her concerns, too blinded by my love for Stella, by my own ingrained narrative of my sister, to see what was truly happening. I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you, I whispered into her hair, my voice thick with regret. That was wrong of me. Maya pulled back, her expression serious beyond her years, her gaze piercingly direct. It's okay, Mom. Adults make mistakes too. That's why I got the evidence. So you'd believe me. In that raw, emotional moment, the roles felt strangely reversed. My child comforting me, showing wisdom and clarity while I floundered in a sea of betrayal and disbelief. What do we do now? Maya asked, practical as always, cutting through my emotional haze. I took a deep, shaky breath, steadying myself. My 9-year-old had given us a fighting chance to recover what was stolen, to bring some justice. Now it was my turn to be the parent she deserved. Now, I said with newfound fierce determination, we take all this evidence to the police and we find Aunt Stella and Brendan before they spend all our money. The next morning, I called the police department and asked to speak with a detective about the evidence we had gathered. Instead of the dismissive response I'd received the day before, this time, we were told to come in immediately. Maya insisted on bringing her entire investigation kit, the phone, her meticulously filled notebook, and a folder where she'd printed screenshots from key videos. Detective Miller was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, who reminded me of the no-nonsense teachers I'd respected most in school. She welcomed us into her office, giving Maya a genuine, respectful smile. I understand you've collected some evidence, she said, directing her words to my daughter with appropriate seriousness. Maya nodded solemnly and opened her folder. I have video, audio, and written documentation, she replied, sounding like a miniature FBI agent. Under different, less devastating circumstances, I might have laughed at her formality. For the next hour, we showed Detective Miller everything Maya had gathered. She watched the videos with increasing interest, pausing occasionally to take notes or ask clarifying questions. When we reached the video where Brendan mentioned his real name, she straightened in her chair, a glint in her eye. Daniel Wilcox, she repeated, typing something rapidly into her computer. Let me check something. A moment later, she turned her monitor toward us. The screen showed a mugshot of Brendan, or rather Daniel, looking significantly less polished, less charming than the man who'd entered our lives. Daniel Wilcox has quite a record, Detective Miller explained, her voice grim. Fraud, identity theft, confidence schemes. He's wanted in 3 states for similar scams, targeting women, usually through their female relatives or friends, gaining access to finances, then disappearing with the money. He's done this before? My voice sounded hollow, like an echo even to my own ears. Many times. His specialty is finding vulnerable women, gaining their trust, then using them to access their family's resources. Her expression softened slightly. Your sister isn't the first to fall for his manipulation, Ms. Taylor. Can you find them? Maya asked, leaning forward anxiously, her small face alight with hope. With this evidence, absolutely. We can put out alerts, freeze accounts, and coordinate with other jurisdictions. Detective Miller looked directly at Maya, a genuine admiration in her eyes. You've done exceptional work here, young lady. Most adults wouldn't have been this thorough or quick thinking. Maya beamed with pride, sitting up straighter in her chair, a hero in her own right. We'll need formal statements from both of you, the detective continued. And I'll want copies of all this evidence, but I'm confident we can build a solid case. As we left the police station, I felt the first tentative stirrings of hope. The money might still be largely gone, but at least Stella and Daniel wouldn't simply get away with it. 3 days later, Detective Miller called with news. They traced activity on my credit card to a hotel in Las Vegas. Local police were preparing to make an arrest, but they needed me to confirm certain details first. We believe they've already spent a significant portion of the money, she warned me, her voice gentle, but we might be able to recover whatever's left. That evening, as Maya and I were eating dinner in a quiet, almost surreal calm, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. When I answered, Stella's voice exploded through the speaker, so loud and raw I had to hold the phone away from my ear. How could you, Clara? How could you send the police after your own sister? She was screaming, her words slurred slightly, wild with panic. They arrested Brendan at the casino. They're outside our hotel room right now. I put the phone on speaker, my hands suddenly shaking uncontrollably. You stole $56,000 from me, Stella. From your niece. What did you expect me to do? He needed the money. They were going to hurt him. You have no idea what you've done, what I've done. The sheer absurdity of her accusation, the complete lack of self-awareness, broke something inside me. You emptied my savings accounts. You took Maya's college fund. Brendan said we'd pay it back. It was just temporary. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Is that what he told you while he was planning your escape to Mexico? While he was calling you his perfect mark? There was a sudden, chilling moment of silence on the other end. What are you talking about? Your boyfriend is a con man, Stella. His name isn't even Brendan. It's Daniel Wilcox. He's wanted in 3 states for scamming women exactly like you. You're lying, she hissed, but uncertainty, a fragile crack, had crept into her voice. The police showed me his record, Stella. This is what he does. He finds women, uses them to access their family's money, then disappears. You're not special to him. You're just a tool. Shut up, she screamed, a raw, wounded sound. You're jealous because someone finally loves me more than they love you. You've always had everything. The nice house, the perfect daughter, the successful career. What do I have? Nothing. Her words hit me like physical blows, a volley of stinging accusations. Was that really how she saw our relationship, as some twisted competition? I put my entire life on hold for you, I said quietly, my voice trembling despite my efforts to control it. I gave up college to raise you. I've bailed you out financially more times than I can count. I welcomed you into my home, trusted you with my daughter, and now you've ruined my life. Her voice broke, a desperate sob. Brendan will go to prison because of you. Brendan ruined your life, I corrected her, my voice unwavering. And you helped him ruin mine. How much of our money is left, Stella? A long, agonizing pause. I don't know. Brendan handled the money. How much did you spend? Another pause, longer, heavier this time. About $30,000. Brendan was on a winning streak at the casino. He said we'd double it. Then triple it. $30,000 gone in 3 days. More than half of everything I'd saved just gambled away. The police are knocking, Stella said suddenly, her voice small, childlike. What do I do, Clara? The childhood nickname nearly broke me. For a second, just a fleeting second, I saw the little girl who'd followed me everywhere, who'd trusted me implicitly to keep the monsters away. Tell them the truth, I advised, my voice steady despite the tears streaming silently down my face. All of it. They'll arrest me too. Probably. I can't go to jail. Please, Clara. Tell them I didn't know. Tell them Brendan forced me. Did he? A long, loaded silence. Not exactly, but he said things about Tampa. He threatened to tell you. What happened in Tampa, Stella? I can't. Her voice cracked, a strangled sound. The police are coming in. I have to go. Stella, wait. But the line went dead. I sat staring at the phone, the unanswered question hanging heavy in the air. What had happened in Tampa? What dark secret gave Brendan such power over my sister? Maya, who had been silently listening to the entire horrifying conversation, placed her small, comforting hand over mine. Aunt Stella sounds scared, she observed. She is scared, I agreed, wiping my tears. She made terrible choices and now she has to face the consequences. Will she go to jail like Brendan? I hesitated, unsure how to explain the brutal complexities of the legal system to a 9-year-old. I don't know, sweetheart. It depends on many things, including whether she tells the truth about what happened. Maya nodded solemnly. She should tell the truth. That's what you always say is most important. Out of the mouths of babes, as they say. The beautiful simplicity of my daughter's moral compass made the entire agonizing situation clearer somehow. The truth was indeed what mattered most now. Not just for the legal consequences, but for any hope of healing the broken trust between my sister and me. Later that night, Detective Miller called again. Daniel Wilcox had been arrested on multiple outstanding warrants. Stella was being held as an accomplice but was, crucially, cooperating with authorities. They had recovered approximately $26,000 from the hotel safe. Less than half of what was taken, but infinitely more than I had dared hope. We'll need you to come to Las Vegas to make a formal identification and statement, she explained. The prosecutor there will want to talk to you about pressing charges against your sister. Pressing charges against Stella. The words felt utterly surreal, a gut punch. This was my baby sister, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose nightmares I had soothed, whose high school graduation I had attended with tears of fierce pride. How in God's name had we arrived at this excruciating point? As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I thought about Stella's bitter accusations. Had I really had everything while she had nothing? From my perspective, I'd sacrificed endlessly for her, put her needs before my own time and again. But perhaps from her distorted view, I was this successful sister, who had it all figured out, who was always telling her what to do, always the responsible one she could never measure up to. The painful truth probably lay somewhere in between. But understanding her perspective, however warped, didn't excuse what she'd done. $56,000 represented years of careful saving, countless small, everyday sacrifices made for Maya's future. Taking that wasn't just stealing money. It was stealing security, stealing opportunity, stealing dreams. In the morning, I would need to book flights to Las Vegas, arrange for Maya to stay with Ms. Evans, and prepare to face my sister across an interrogation room table. But for now, I simply let the tears come, mourning the relationship I had thought we had, and facing the brutal, painful reality of what actually existed between us. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department headquarters was nothing like the cozy, reassuring police stations depicted in family-friendly TV shows. It was imposing, sterile, with harsh fluorescent lighting that cruelly emphasized the dark circles under my eyes. I'd barely slept on the overnight flight, my mind cycling endlessly through fragmented memories of Stella as a child, as a teenager, and finally as the woman who had betrayed me so completely. The prosecutor assigned to the case, Elena Rodriguez, met me in a cold, functional conference room. She was brisk and efficient, laying out the damning evidence against both Daniel Wilcox and Stella. Mr. Wilcox is facing multiple felony charges across several jurisdictions, she explained, her voice precise. Given his prior convictions, he's looking at significant prison time. Your sister's situation is more complicated. Complicated? How? I asked, cradling the department-issued coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since last week. She's a first-time offender and she's cooperating. She claims Wilcox manipulated and threatened her, which may be partially true based on his history. However, the evidence your daughter collected clearly shows she ultimately made a conscious choice to participate. My chest tightened, a sharp pain at the mention of Maya's evidence. My 9-year-old's incredible detective work was now a core part of a criminal prosecution. What are her charges? Grand theft, fraud, identity theft. Though the last one might not stick since she was authorized to be in your home. She's looking at up to 5 years, potentially more with aggravating factors. 5 years. My sister in prison until she was 35. The thought made me physically ill. Is there any alternative? I asked hesitantly, the words catching in my throat. Prosecutor Rodriguez studied me thoughtfully, her gaze unreadable. You're considering not pressing charges? I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. She's my sister. We grew up together. I practically raised her after our parents divorced. Family fraud is the hardest kind, Prosecutor Rodriguez said, her professional demeanor softening ever so slightly, but it's also the most damaging. Your sister betrayed your trust in the most fundamental way. I know. However, she continued, there is one possibility. If your sister agrees to testify against Wilcox and provides information about his other criminal activities, we could potentially offer a plea deal with reduced charges. What would that look like? Possibly 18 months in a minimum security facility, plus probation and restitution orders. But that depends entirely on how valuable her testimony is and her level of cooperation. 18 months still seemed an eternity, a long, brutal stretch, but it was profoundly better than 5 years, and restitution meant she would eventually have to pay back what was taken. Can I see her? I asked, the decision forming in my mind. Prosecutor Rodriguez made a phone call, and 30 minutes later, I was led to a small, stark room with a metal table bolted to the floor. When they brought Stella in, I barely recognized her. Her usually perfect hair hung limp around her pale, drawn face. The designer clothes were replaced by an unflattering orange jumpsuit that made her look small, vulnerable, lost. Without makeup, she appeared younger, more like the sister I remembered from our childhood, a ghost of her former self. Clara, she whispered, her eyes filling instantly with tears. I didn't think you'd come. I needed answers, I replied, keeping my voice neutral, emotionless, despite the turbulent emotions churning violently inside me. We sat across from each other, a vast, unbridgeable gulf wider than the metal table between us. They arrested Brendan, she said unnecessarily, her voice flat. He had fake IDs in the hotel room, passports with different names. His name is Daniel, I reminded her, the words like cold steel. And yes, Detective Miller told me he's wanted in multiple states. Stella's face crumpled. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know who he really was. Maybe not at first, I conceded, a flicker of doubt. But you knew what you were doing when you took my money. Maya's college fund, Stella. Her future. She flinched as if physically struck at the mention of Maya. How is she? Confused, hurt. He loved you, you know. Idolized you. Stella covered her face with her hands, a soundless sob escaping. I've ruined everything. Yes, I agreed, not softening the blow, not offering an ounce of false comfort. What I need to know is why. What happened in Tampa that Brendan could use against you? Her hands dropped, eyes widening, raw fear replacing sorrow. How do you know about Tampa? I heard you mention it on the phone, and Maya's videos caught Brendan threatening to tell me about it. What did you do that was so terrible, Stella? Stella glanced nervously at the guard standing by the door, then leaned forward, lowering her voice to a desperate whisper. 2 years ago, I was in Tampa with some friends. We were at this club and I met a guy. He was older, successful. We hit it off, went back to his hotel. She paused, swallowing hard, visibly struggling. The next morning, I noticed his wedding ring on the bathroom counter. He'd taken it off at the club. When I confronted him, he offered me money to keep quiet. $10,000. I was broke, about to be evicted. Her voice trailed off, a pathetic, broken sound. You took it, I finished for her, the realization sinking in sickeningly. She nodded miserably. It got worse. He started calling, wanting to see me whenever he was in town, offering more money each time. It went on for months before I finally blocked his number and moved. You were blackmailing him, I stated flatly, a cold accusation. I didn't see it that way then. I told myself he was just paying for companionship. She laughed bitterly, a self-deprecating sound. I was no better than a. Don't, I interrupted, cutting her off. That's not what this is about. Brendan found out somehow. He had this way of getting me to tell him things, then using them against me later. He said if I didn't help him get your money, he'd tell you everything. That you'd be disgusted with me. That I'd lose you and Maya forever. So instead you chose to steal from us. I believed him when he said we'd pay it back. Her eyes pleaded for understanding, for a shred of mercy. He showed me investment returns, business plans. It all seemed legitimate. By the time I realized what was really happening, we were already in Las Vegas and he was gambling away thousands at the casino, just throwing it away. I studied my sister's face, searching desperately for the truth amidst the layers of deception. Was she lying now to save herself, or had she genuinely been manipulated by a practiced, dangerous con man? The answer was probably somewhere in between. Not innocent, but perhaps not as calculating, as purely malicious as I'd feared. The D is offering you a deal, I said finally, my voice carefully controlled. Testify against Daniel Wilcox and they'll reduce your charges, 18 months instead of 5 years. Hope, fragile and desperate, flickered in her eyes. You'd do that for me? After what I did? I'm not doing it for you, I clarified, making sure the distinction was brutally clear. I'm doing it because sending you to prison for 5 years won't get my money back. This way you'll serve less time and have to make restitution. Her face fell, the hope dimming at my cold, practical logic. I understand. Do you? I pressed my voice hard. Because I need you to fully comprehend what you've done, Stella. You didn't just take money. You betrayed my trust completely. You broke Maya's heart. You damaged our family in ways that might never ever heal. Tears finally spilled down her cheeks, a silent waterfall of remorse. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. I promise. Promises from you don't mean much right now, I said, standing up, the finality in my voice chilling. Take the deal. Cooperate fully. Pay back every cent you can. That's the only path forward I can see right now. Clara, wait, she called as I turned to leave. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I paused at the door, the question hanging heavily, painfully between us. I don't know, I answered honestly, the words raw. Right now, I can't even imagine it. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my entire life. With only $26,000 recovered, I was facing a severe, suffocating financial crisis. My emergency fund was depleted, Maya's college savings nearly wiped out. I had to take on freelance projects on weekends just to make ends meet, often working until midnight after Maya was asleep, fueled by sheer exhaustion and anxiety. My coworkers, upon learning what happened, organized a surprise fundraiser, a gesture of unexpected kindness that brought me to tears. Family Emergency Fund for Clara and Maya, read the online campaign they created, which raised nearly $7,000 from colleagues, clients, and even competitors in our industry. Their kindness was a truly bright spot in an otherwise dark, bleak time. Maya, the remarkable child that she was, never once complained about our suddenly tighter circumstances. No more weekly pizza nights, no summer camp this year, fewer new clothes. She accepted each change with a maturity that both impressed and deeply concerned me. I arranged for her to see the school counselor, Ms. Patel, worrying about the profound psychological impact of her aunt's betrayal. Ms. Patel assured me that Maya was processing the situation remarkably well. She feels empowered by her role in solving the crime, Ms. Patel explained during our parent conference. Rather than feeling victimized, she sees herself as the hero of the story. But is that healthy? I worried, a knot in my stomach. Shouldn't she be more upset? Children are incredibly resilient, Miss Taylor. And Maya has a strong sense of justice. She's hurt by her aunt's actions, certainly, but she's focused on the fact that the bad guys were caught. That's actually a very healthy response. I wished I could say the same for my own emotional state. I oscillated wildly between burning rage and overwhelming grief. Sometimes waking in the middle of the night from dreams where Stella and I were children again, innocent and inseparable. Other times I'd find myself compulsively checking my bank accounts, a paranoid ritual, despite the changed passwords and added security measures. Stella called from jail 3 weeks after her arrest. I almost didn't accept the collect call, but something, habit perhaps, or a lingering, stubborn sisterly concern, made me agree. I took the deal, she said without preamble, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. I'm testifying against Daniel, whatever his name. Good, I replied, uncertain what else to say. They're transferring me to a facility in Washington next month to serve my sentence, 18 months like you said, and I'll be on probation after that with restitution payments. I nodded, then realized she couldn't see me. That's good. Clara, I need to see you before they transfer me. Please, there are things I need to say in person. My first instinct was to refuse, to hang up. What could she possibly say that would make any difference? But the raw vulnerability in her voice gave me pause. I'll think about it, I said finally. And Maya, could I see her too? Just once. Absolutely not, I said firmly, cutting her off, the words sharp. You've done enough damage there. The call ended soon after, leaving me with a heavy decision to make. Did I owe Stella one last visit? Did I need it for my own closure? The questions plagued me for days until I finally made up my mind. I would see her once more before her transfer, not for her sake but for mine, to look my sister in the eye and try to understand how we had arrived at this broken, agonizing place, to search for any possibility of redemption, however distant it might be. The county detention center looked even more dismal in the harsh light of early morning. I'd chosen a weekday visit, leaving Maya with Miss Evans after school, rather than subjecting her to the soul-crushing atmosphere of this place. The guard escorted me to the same sterile meeting room where I'd seen Stella 3 weeks earlier. When she entered, I noticed subtle, unsettling changes. Her jumpsuit hung looser on her frame, suggesting painful weight loss. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her expression was calmer, more settled, more humbled than before. Thank you for coming, she said, taking the seat across from me, her voice soft. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I admitted, my voice equally quiet. We sat in uncomfortable, suffocating silence for a moment. 28 years of shared history, suddenly insufficient for even the simplest conversation. I've been seeing a therapist here, Stella finally said, breaking the silence, part of the pre-sentencing program. It's been illuminating. In what way? I asked, a flicker of curiosity despite my guarded heart. She traced a pattern on the cold metal table with her finger. We've been talking about patterns. How I've spent my whole life defining myself in relation to you. I frowned, confused. What does that mean? When we were kids after Mom and Dad split, you became everything to me. Mother, sister, best friend. You were perfect in my eyes. Responsible, smart, together. Everything I wasn't. I was just doing what needed to be done, I said, uncomfortable with her idealized yet resentful characterization. I know that now. But back then I put you on this pedestal. And as I got older I started to resent it. Resent me. The words stung, piercing my heart. Because no matter what I did I couldn't measure up. The words, though painful, contained a ring of truth I couldn't deny, a bitter realization. So I started acting out, she continued, her gaze direct, unwavering. Making choices I knew you wouldn't approve of. doing things specifically because they would disappoint you. It was childish and stupid, but it was the only way I knew to establish my own identity. By stealing from me? I couldn't keep the sharp, accusing edge from my voice. No, that was different. That was... She paused, seeming to wrestle with herself with the agonizing truth. That was the culmination of years of bad decisions, of choosing men who were exciting but ultimately terrible for me, of always wanting shortcuts to the stability you had worked so hard for. I studied my sister's face, seeing fleeting glimpses of the little girl who had followed me everywhere, mixed with the troubled, broken woman she had become. When I met Daniel, I thought he was different. Charming, ambitious, interested in me for myself rather than what I could do for him. I was so desperate to be loved that I ignored every single red flag. There were many, I noted dryly, the understatement hanging in the air. So many, she agreed with a sad, self-deprecating smile. But the biggest one was how he drove a wedge between you and me. How he isolated me from the one person who had always been there for me. Classic abuser tactic, I said, remembering articles I'd read about relationship manipulation. My therapist said the same thing. Stella leaned forward, her eyes meeting mine directly, holding my gaze. Clara, what I did was inexcusable. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I haven't earned that. But I need you to know that I am genuinely, deeply sorry. Not just for the money, but for betraying your trust, for hurting Maya, for throwing away everything you did for me. The sincerity in her voice, the raw, unvarnished remorse, caught me completely off guard. I had expected excuses, deflection, perhaps even blame directed back at me. Instead, I was hearing what sounded like genuine, heartbreaking accountability. The money, I began, my voice still guarded. I'll pay back every cent, she interrupted, her voice firm, resolute. I've already arranged with the DA to garnish any prison wages and future earnings until it's fully repaid. It will take years, but I'll do it. It's not just about the money, Stella. I know, she drew a shaky breath, her gaze pleading. It's about the fact that I destroyed our relationship, that I hurt the two people I love most in the world, that I chose a con man over my own sister and niece. Tears filled her eyes again but didn't fall, held back by newfound resolve. I don't expect you to believe me now. Words are cheap, especially from someone who's lied as much as I have. But I'm going to prove it to you day by day, year by year, for as long as it takes. Even if you never speak to me again after today, I'm going to make this right somehow. I sat back, slowly absorbing her words. There was a conviction in them I hadn't heard from Stella before. Not the desperate promises of someone trying to escape consequences, but the measured, painful determination of someone facing them head-on. Daniel goes to trial next month, I said, changing the subject slightly, turning to the practicalities. Will you testify? Yes, about everything. Tampa, the schemes, how he targeted other women, whatever they need. She paused. He's been writing me letters from jail, threatening at first, then apologetic, then promising we could still be together when this is all over. I'm not responding. My therapist says it's part of the cycle, keeping me emotionally engaged, maintaining control even from jail. I'm done being controlled. For the very first time since discovering the theft, I felt a tiny, fragile flicker of hope for my sister. Not forgiveness, that was still far too distant a prospect. But hope that perhaps she might finally be confronting the destructive patterns that had led her here. How's Maya? Stella asked tentatively, her voice soft. She's resilient, doing well in school. The counselor says she's processing everything in a healthy way. I hesitated, then added, she asks about you sometimes. Stella's eyes widened, a desperate, yearning hope in them. She does. She wants to know if you're okay, if you're sorry for what you did. And what do you tell her? The truth, that you made very bad choices that hurt a lot of people and now you have to face the consequences. But that, yes, I think you are sorry. A tear finally escaped, tracing a path down Stella's cheek, a single, solitary drop. Thank you for that. For not painting me as a monster to her. And she loves you despite everything. Children have an amazing capacity for love, I said, my voice barely audible, even when adults don't deserve it. Will I ever see her again? The question was barely audible, a raw plea. I don't know, Stella. That depends on many things. On you, on her, on how the next few years go. I won't force her either way. She nodded, accepting this uncertain, ambiguous future as the best answer I could give. When the guard indicated our time was nearly up, Stella reached across the table, her hand stopping short of touching mine, an invisible barrier still between us. There's one more thing I need to say, she began, her voice gaining strength, conviction. Something my therapist and I have been working on. I need to take full responsibility without excuses. She straightened her shoulders, a newfound resolve in her posture. I stole from you. I betrayed your trust. I hurt your daughter. These were my choices regardless of Daniel's influence. I alone am responsible for what I did. And I will accept whatever consequences come from it, legal and personal. The words seemed rehearsed, yet somehow profoundly sincere. A therapeutic exercise transformed into genuine, heartbreaking accountability. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly, the words feeling inadequate. It matters. As I stood to leave, Stella remained seated, hands folded in front of her. Will you write to me? She asked, her voice small again. Just occasionally. Let me know how you and Maya are doing. I paused at the door, the question hanging heavily, emotionally charged. I'll think about it. It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't a refusal either. For now, it was all I could offer. True to her word, Stella testified against Daniel the following month. His trial revealed a chilling pattern of crimes spanning nearly a decade. Multiple identities, countless victims, hundreds of thousands of dollars stolen from vulnerable women and their families. With Stella's testimony and damning evidence from other victims, he was sentenced to 12 brutal years in federal prison. Stella began her 18-month sentence at a minimum security facility in Washington state. And true to her words, she wrote regularly, letters I didn't answer at first, then began to read, and eventually, many agonizing months later, started to reply to with brief, carefully worded updates about our lives. The healing process was agonizingly slow and incredibly painful. Some days the anger would return full force, a raging inferno, especially when financial stress hit hardest. Other days I'd find myself missing the sister I thought I had, the person I believed Stella to be before the brutal betrayal. Therapy helped both for Maya and for me. So did time. The sharp, jagged edges of betrayal gradually dulled, not into forgiveness exactly, but into a kind of weary acceptance. What had happened couldn't be undone. The question was how to move forward, how to rebuild our lives from the ashes. 1 year after Stella's arrest, our lives had found a new, fragile normal. I'd received a significant promotion at work, partly due to a major client I'd brought in through one of my weekend freelance projects. Maya was thriving in school, her brief, unexpected detective career having sparked a fervent interest in computer science and technology. She joined a coding club and spent hours creating simple games and programs, her mind alight with possibility. The restitution payments from Stella's prison job were small but steady, a tangible sign of her efforts. Combined with what had been recovered initially and my increased salary, we were slowly, painstakingly rebuilding our financial security. It would be years before we fully recovered, before the fear truly subsided, but the acute crisis had passed. On a warm Saturday afternoon, I received a letter unlike the others Stella had sent. This one contained a small, handmade card, carefully crafted from materials available in prison, colored pencil drawings and delicate origami flowers, clearly meant for Maya. The envelope specified, "If you think it's appropriate." Inside, Stella had written a simple, heartfelt message. Dear Maya, I'm sorry for the hurt I caused you and your mom. You were brave and smart and did the right thing. I'm working hard to become someone worthy of knowing you again someday. With love, your Aunt Stella. I showed it to Maya that evening, watching her face carefully as she read it, searching for her reaction. What do you think? I asked when she finished. I think Aunt Stella is really sorry, she said thoughtfully, her brow furrowed in concentration. Can I write back to her? The question caught me completely off guard. You want to? Maya nodded. Not a lot. Just to tell her I got her card. Is that okay? I considered the request carefully. The counselor had advised following Maya's lead regarding contact with Stella, emphasizing that forcing either communication or separation could be potentially harmful. Yes, I decided. You can write a short letter if you want to. I'll read it before we send it. Okay. She hugged me tightly, her small arms fierce. Mom, are you still mad at Aunt Stella? I stroked her hair, considering my answer carefully, honestly. I'm still hurt by what she did, Maya, but I'm not as angry as I was. She's trying to make things right, and that matters. Will she come live with us again when she gets out of jail? No, sweetheart. That won't happen. But maybe someday we might see her occasionally in a public place with supervision at first. If she continues to show she's changed. Maya seemed satisfied with this answer, accepting the complex reality with the remarkable adaptability children often show. In the months that followed, a tentative communication developed. Cards and letters exchanged on birthdays and holidays. Brief updates shared through carefully composed notes, a fragile bridge slowly being constructed. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, not yet, but it was something. A tiny bridge being rebuilt across a chasm of betrayal. Stella was released after serving her full 18 months. As required by her probation, she moved into a halfway house, found a job at a local restaurant, and continued therapy diligently. Her restitution payments increased steadily with her waitressing income and tips, a constant, tangible reminder of her commitment. 6 months after her release, we met at a park near my home. Neutral territory, public and safe, carefully chosen. The woman who approached our bench looked both familiar and profoundly strange. My sister, yes, but humbled. Her designer clothes replaced by simple jeans and a sweater, her once perfect makeup minimal and subdued. Our conversation was awkward, halting, filled with the immense weight of everything that had happened, of all the unspoken words. Maya, more resilient, more adaptable than either of us, broke the tension by showing Stella her latest coding project on a tablet. The simple game she created where a detective character collected clues to solve mysteries brought surprise laughter from all of us, a shared moment of lightness. That meeting didn't magically restore our relationship. Nothing could ever erase the betrayal or instantly rebuild trust shattered so completely. But it was a beginning, a tentative, cautious step towards something new. Not the blind, naive trust of before, but a cautious, eyes-wide-open connection built on accountability rather than obligation. Through this painful, transformative journey, I learned lessons I never, ever expected. That sometimes the people closest to us can cause the deepest, most agonizing wounds. That forgiveness isn't a single decision but a daily, difficult choice. That boundaries aren't selfish, but absolutely necessary for healthy, functional relationships. And most importantly, that listening to a 9-year-old's instincts might just be the wisest choice of all. I also learned that family isn't defined by unconditional acceptance of harmful behavior, but by the courage to hold loved ones accountable while leaving room, a tiny sliver for genuine change. True love sometimes means walking away until healing can happen for both parties, separately before perhaps finding a new way forward together. Today, 3 years after that terrible life-altering discovery, Stella and I speak monthly. She's making steady restitution payments and building a new life for herself, modest but honest, earned through hard work. Maya sees her occasionally, always with me present, always in a public, supervised setting. Trust returns in microscopic increments, earned through consistent, undeniable actions rather than empty, manipulative promises. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if Maya hadn't been so observant, so brave, so determined to protect us. Would Stella have eventually returned on her own? Would she have ever recognized Daniel's insidious manipulation without the legal consequences that forced her to confront her own devastating reality? Would I have ever learned the difficult truth about my sister's deep-seated resentment and jealousy that fueled her terrible choices? I'll never truly know. But I do know this. The greatest wisdom sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources, like a 9-year-old who saw what I, an adult, couldn't see and acted when I wouldn't. This journey taught me invaluable lessons about trust, about resilience, and about the subtle yet incredibly powerful wisdom of children. So, I'm genuinely curious. Have you ever experienced a moment when a child's unique perspective cut through adult blindness to reveal an uncomfortable, game-changing truth? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.